What is going on, party people? Welcome to the week 14 edition of The Game Plan. Today's episode, boys and girls, we got to get dialed in. We got to get ready to rock. We got to start game planning to win in week 14, because if we win in week 14, well, then we're probably going to the playoffs, getting ready to rock and roll, trying to get the championship belt, become the league's champ. And this week is very important. I know in my home league, there's a huge logjam of teams trying to get into the playoffs, and I got to win. And if I win, I'm in. If I lose, or something else can happen. It's just chaos. It's absolutely chaotic. So we're going to get dialed in. We're going to start game planning for today's episode. I got my coffee in a Minnie Mouse mug. That's just how we roll in the house. I'm seeing people floating in the chat. Shout out to everyone who's here bright and early on Sunday morning. My man Harry Snowman, Sharbo to the rescue. Flowosaurus, what's going on? Dynasty Barry, how you doing, my boy? DB, and of course, Gooner Boy, good morning to you as well. If you have any lineup decisions, roster decisions, anything in your mind that's just kind of you're not sure about, drop it in the chat. We'll make sure that we get it answered. I'll make sure that we talk about it. And if you want to cut the line, you can go ahead and throw a super chat in there. You'll cut the line. I might even hit a quick pause on what I'm talking about and make sure that we get that lineup decision absolutely dialed in. While you're here, make sure you're subscribed to the South Harmon FF YouTube channel. Like this video and leave a comment. If you don't get your roster question answered, or if you're just not exactly sure, if you have a follow-up question, go ahead, leave it in the comments and I'll make sure I answer it. And of course, as always, head over to southharmonff.com. Get your access to the WoRP Tool, the articles, the rankings, everything that we have going on over there. And if you want to become a member of the South Harmon community, join the Patreon, patreon.com/South Harmon. So, folks, where I want to start today's episode, I'm not going to go through the list of inactives and inactives, because it seems like most of the guys we were worried about throughout the week, we either got an early call, like Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker. We knew we had to make other arrangements a couple of days ago. And of course, the big one was the Jordan Mason follow, that followed the Christian McCaffrey IR stint. So we already had resolutions there. We're going to talk about not just Gruendo today. We're going to talk about Braylon Allen and Zach Charbonnet. Today, this week's episode, I tried to, in my rankings breakdown, bring up names that you might have some questions. So I wanted to bring them up, talk about those players in the ranking section. But it seems like George Pickens is going to play. Devontae Smith is going to play. Jacoby Myers is going to play. Seems like Malik Neighbors is going to fire it up. DJ Moore is going to play. It sounds like DeAndre Swift is going to play. It seems like all the guys that were carrying that questionable tag throughout the week or is limited in practices, they are going to suit up. Some of them have removed the injury tag altogether, like the Slim Reaper, CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson. Those guys are ready to go on Monday Night Football. So it seems like in terms of the injuries, in terms of how that's kind of panning out, we do have a bit of resolution. We do have some answers early on so that we can make sure that we're game planning, like what I did there. And then if we need to, if we have follow-up questions, of course, come back to the channel at 12 Eastern Standard Time. Eric Vanek, T-Rock, Matt, Dennis appears here a lot. There's always people popping in on the Start or Shit show, so be here for that. So, folks, without further ado, let's get into the rankings, huh? Let's get into my rankings. So we'll start at quarterback here, and I got the ticker going. So if you want to see kind of my 1 through 20, you'll got it there. If you want to see the complete rankings, of course, head over to southharmonff.com. Get access to all of the weekly rankings. Castle Black, what's up, CB? What's going on, Castle? Good to see you in the chat. I see some questions piling up, and make sure, leave them in there. We'll get to them. We'll absolutely get to them. Stick around. We will get to it. So the first guy that I'm going to talk about here today at quarterback was Joe Burrow. And it's not really a lineup thing. If you have him, you're playing him. But what I really wanted to do just briefly is talk about the matchup. I wanted to talk about what he's done. I'm going to dive into his WoRP, his wins over replacement, and what that means relative to the landscape of fantasy football. But that's going to be later on the show when I jump into the This Week in WoRP segment. But what I want to talk about Burrow is for this week. He's got the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys are a middle of the road matchup for opposing quarterbacks. They're 16th in terms of giving up points to the mean. So they're not necessarily one that you want to pick on when it comes to streaming type quarterbacks. But what I want to talk about Burrow is he's far from that this year. Of course, he's kind of returned to form. If it wasn't for the lackluster record, he would absolutely be in the conversation for MVP. 3,300 passing yards. He already has 30 passing touchdowns, 22 fantasy points per game. And when you look at the analytical metrics, all the underlying stuff, EPA, number 1, QBR, number 3, number 6 in pressure completion percentage. So even when he's getting pressured, he's converting. His adjusted yards per attempt is 5th in the NFL. He's getting the ball downfield. And of course, we're seeing that through T. Higgins. We're seeing that through Jamar Chase. He's been an absolute stud for the Bengals this year. And he needed to get a little bit of flowers today. So this isn't necessarily a lineup decision. We're starting light here on the game plan. Usually we get it going. We talk, we get into the nitty gritty, and we will. But we're going to start with a little bit of celebration when it comes to Joe Burrow. He's been awesome. Joe Burrow's been very good. And the Cowboys, they do, however, give up a pretty high completion percentage amongst some of the highest in the NFL. They give up about a 67% completion percentage. They give up about 230 passing yards per game, and they get 17 touchdowns on the year for opposing quarterbacks. Joe Burrow, though, however, I just said it, 30 touchdowns so far this season. He's going to light them up on Monday Night Football. And I do want to bring this up as I'm talking about Burrow and as I'm talking about that Cowboys matchup is I think the way the Bengals have been playing both offensively and defensively is going to be a spot where we can expect good output from both sides of the ball, where, the Bengals will push the offensive pace. Of course, the Cowboys defense has been playing better recently, but look at the matchups. They've just really taken advantage of some softer matchups, including the Commanders, who last week turned it around, but were kind of stumbling, previous month before that. So I think their defense is a bit of a fugazi, a bit of a mirage. So the Bengals should have no problem exploiting that, pushing the pace, pushing the limits of scoring. And then, of course, with the game being in Dallas, I think the Cowboys will kind of keep track, at least put some points. So I do like that for Lamb. I like that for Donald. I like that for Ferguson. So I just wanted to bring that up as I'm talking about Burrow. But the next quarterback I'm going to talk about, Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams, I have at QB8 this week. And the matchup's not great. The Niners aren't easily taken advantage of this season. They've been pretty staunch, but Bosa's banged up. The secondary's kind of been hurting lately. And they don't give up a lot of fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. But where they can be taken advantage of is in the rushing game for quarterbacks. And that's why I feel a little bit confident putting Caleb Williams in my top 10, because, he has been a more of a rushing quarterback, I think, than we anticipated. We definitely love to see it. We welcome it in fantasy, but, he's 6th amongst quarterbacks in rushing yards, right around 375. He puts up anywhere from 30 to 40 rushing yards per contest, and he'll run the ball in the red zone. So he's got 9 red zone carries this season, which is 10th most amongst quarterbacks. So if he can give us that rushing floor, that 40, 30, even 30 or 50, but 50 would be great, rushing yards, this is where he can kind of hit that mark. And the thing is, against Green Bay 2 weeks ago, week 11, right? It's a tough matchup for quarterbacks, except it wasn't for Goff. Goff lifted them up on Thursday night. He did have 70 rushing yards, which kept him as an okay fantasy scorer. He was QB 22, so it wasn't like he won any matchups for anyone. But he was able to at least focus in and at least not make big mistakes and at least keep his head above water. And I only say that to say, this matchup, I don't think he's going to have to just keep his head above water. I don't think he's just going to have to survive against the Niners. I think you get the Thomas Brown, you get the interim coach boost. We all know that's real, right? It's quantifiable. I don't know if it is, but Thomas Brown's the new head coach, who Thomas Brown, as offensive coordinator, has helped out Caleb Williams. And over the last 2 games for the first overall pick in last year's draft, we're talking about a combined total right around 300 yards a game, 2.5 touchdowns per game, so 5 total for the math whizzes. And he's had top 5 QB performances each of the last 2 weeks. And now DJ Moore's going to play. Keenan Allen's going to play. Rome Odunze. The weapons are there. And I think that as of right now, it's clear that the Niners are reeling as a team. They're dealing with a number of injuries. It's been tough. So I expect Caleb here to be able to have the ability to throw multiple touchdowns or get in the end zone, whether it be rushing or not. because he is chucking the ball downfield. They're letting him chuck. They're letting him make plays. And with Thomas Brown at the helm, the game plan is probably going to look a little bit scripted early on, a little quicker throws, quicker drops. That's at least what he's done for this offense when he was promoted to offensive coordinator. So now as head coach, I'm expecting more of the same. And for a guy like Caleb Williams, QB 8 top 10 week is absolutely in play. He's kind of hitting his groove. And like I said, the matchup isn't great on paper, but when you look at the injuries, you kind of look at how they've played recently. The Niners are a little bit more exploitable than they have been. So that should be a fun game in the 4:00 window. So those are the quarterbacks that I wanted to talk about in my rankings this week. But as you see at the bottom of the screen, I've had the top 20. So you've been a chance to see where I have the top 20 and how I have it shaken out. And if you want to get the complete list of quarterbacks, head over to SouthHarmonFF.com. All right, so let's get some questions in the chat, shall we? I see 3 of them, and then we'll get into the running backs. Pacheco or Kupp? For me, it's Kupp. For me, I got Kupp. So this week, Kupp is relatively low because of the matchup, but that's still 11th. The volume's there. Touchdown capability is always there for Kupp. Where Pacheco is, we expect him to take over the lion's share of the rushing. We've seen reports that Kareem Hunt's going to take a back seat, was the quote, which is fine. He kind of did last week. You know, he was on the field about half the time, but production-wise was all Pacheco. So I don't see Pacheco kind of exceeding and having a massive game. Could he score a touchdown? Of course. I think he's a good floor play, but if you're telling me between Pacheco and Kupp, I'm going to go Kupp. I do like Pacheco, though, but just not in comparison to Kupp. I like Kupp. Like I said, 11th receiver this week, even in a tougher defensive matchup, but a potential barn burner type of game in LA. What's going on, Dylan? Good morning. Half point PPR start Neighbors or Chuba Hubbard? Man, that is the most 2024 question I've ever seen. I'm still going Neighbors. If you do see a report, you're going to have to unfortunately do a little homework from now till 1 o'clock. But if you want to come back here at the channel at noon, we'll get maybe a solidified answer. But you got to follow the warm-up. If it seems like he gets it off without a hitch and he's going to play, I'm going to go Neighbors. I still have him as a top 15 receiver. And right now, Chuba Hubbard's my running back 19. So I'm going to go with Neighbors. But if it sounds like it's just not really good, it doesn't seem optimistic after the reports, or if you just don't feel in your gut, Chuba Hubbard is a play for me. Like I said, top 20 running back. So I will play him as a running back 2 in leagues where he has been my running back 2. Nick Chubb or Jaylen Warren in PPR. Believe it or not, I'm going to go with Jaylen Warren. I do have Chubb only 5 spots behind. It's close, but he just has it. He's been so touchdown dependent. Where Warren, I like the floor in PPR. Matt. So, he's been getting the targets, 10 fantasy points each of the last couple of weeks. One came with a touchdown, which gave him that 15-point week. The other one did not have a touchdown last week. It still had 10 fantasy points. And I think Chubb here, if he gets 3 touchdowns, that's fine. He can have a Josh Jacobs game. But I think if you don't like betting on touchdowns, you go Warren. I got Warren ranked 5 spots higher this week. Good morning, Mr. Dub. PPR, you got to sit one. DJ, Keenan, or Hopkins. Ooh, I don't know if I love going. So I got DJ Moore ranked the highest, followed by Keenan Allen, followed by DeAndre Hopkins. But I don't know if I want to play both here. But I do like Caleb's a top 10 play. I'm definitely playing Keenan. And I know I have Keenan ranked behind DJ Moore, but with Keenan, he had the full practices. He's had the targets. I feel happiest about his floor, what you're going to get. Yeah, I feel better at predicting his future than the other two, so I'm definitely going to play Keenan. And then for me, I'll just say it this way. I have DJ Moore ranked considerably higher than Hopkins, but if you just can't in your stomach, you can't in your brain get to the point where you want to start 2 Chicago Bear wide receivers, that's fine going Hopkins. I still have him as a top 35 receiver this week against the Chargers. He's been, a good wide receiver for Pat Mahomes, 9 targets last week. He didn't catch a whole lot of them, but he still converted 90 yards, double-digit fantasy points. So that's what we're shooting for here. So I'm definitely playing Keenan Dub, and if you want to take the highest upside, go with DJ Moore. If you just can't play 2 Bears, go Hopkins. I will not fault you for that one bit. You lost Kincaid. Yep. Yeah, which tight end am I grabbing this week? I'm going to grab Juwan Johnson. So I got Johnson as tight end 13 for me this week. Then it comes, the Grays, the Calcateras, the Chigs, they all kind of follow in after that. But Johnson at 13, that's where I'm going to go with there. If I'm going to go with my, what the hell am I doing with my fantasy life tight end? How are we landing Ladd? As long as he plays, I got him as a top 18 play. So I got him just outside of the wide receiver 1 range. He's a lock solid wide receiver 2. The volume's been there, and we know he can play through toughness. Through being hurt. He did it last week. You could tell he was affected, and he still went off, performed at a high level. Ladd McConkey's here. Ladd McConkey is an awesome wide receiver for Justin Herbert. So I do love McConkey, and I'm playing him as long as I get reports that it's looking good for him tonight. If you do need a fallback option, if you do need somebody that you're willing to kind of wait it out, Brandon Cooks is there. Jalen Tolbert is a possibility. Andre Yosivas. There are options, of course, but his team, you can go his teammates. Josh Palmer, Quentin Johnson has been dropped in a few leagues recently, so there are options to have to gamble with Ladd McConkey. So that's something I'm going to put in the win column for McConkey, and the reason why I'm willing to wait it out. I like the upside, and the options aren't terrible if I have to kind of pull the emergency chute and go elsewhere. What's going on, Jackson? Full point PPR, Elijah Moore or Adam Thielen? I got Thielen ranked higher. I'm going to go Thielen here. Tougher matchup against the Eagles, but man, he can just be used all over the field, and he's been awesome for the Panthers, especially the last couple weeks being back. So I'm going to go Thielen here. I got to see a couple more questions, but we're going to head and move on. I just gave a little quick reveal, but stick around, Hook'em. Stick around, everybody. We're going to get to the questions here, but first, I got to talk a little bit about running backs. And the guy that I'm going to talk about here to start it off, Isaac Guerendo. So Guerendo this week for me, I got him at running back 12. And I felt like I wanted to be a bit conservative. I know the upside's there. I know it. I know the situation, the offense, Kyle Shanahan, outside run zones. It's been awesome. I'm reading the book right now about the inception of that offense. He's got a decent matchup against the Bears. They're 19th. They give up about 2 less points than league average, but it's on the bottom half of but they also, slow it down. I was getting ahead of my brain was firing a little too fast. They also, though, they do give up about 2 points more than league average to receiving backs. And the thought process here is, okay, the secondary, Jalen Johnson and Tyreek Stevenson, they're going to be able to probably keep the wide receivers in check for the Niners to an extent, especially with the injury to the shoulder for Brock Purdy, the injuries to Trent Williams. So I kind of see this being a tougher game for the receivers, meaning the check down opportunities will be there for a guy like Guerendo. Will it be, the opportunities like Christian McCaffrey saw? No. But it will be more than Mason saw? Yeah, I do think so. He has run double-digit routes in a game this year. That was in the game that was similar to this one back in Week 8 against the Cowboys. He ran 11 routes. He got 4 targets. He caught 3 of them, and he was able to produce over 100 yards from scrimmage that game. He was a top 10 running back. So it's there. There's a path to him being a top 10 guy. I'm just being a bit more conservative in regards to Guerendo, the rookie third-string running back. So I got him at running back 12, but I know he's going to be a lot of decisions for people out there. So do I play him or do I play Guerendo or do I play Rashad White? I'm playing Guerendo. Do I play Guerendo or do I play Najee Harris? They're pretty close, but I'm probably going to lean Guerendo. Am I going to play Guerendo or am I going to play DeAndre Swift? I'm going to play Guerendo. So I want to make sure we talked about him, talked a little bit about what he brings to the table. Big guy, 6 feet, 220 pounds, good speed score, good 40-yard dash, very agile. Player comparable on playerprofiler.com is Isaiah Pacheco. So if you like that type of running style and this type of offense, I think that Guerendo is someone for you. Again, it's rare that we get a running back just kind of falling from the sky into our laps to help us win a championship or get in the playoffs. This week we got 3. It's crazy. It's crazy. But Guerendo, I do like him this week, top 12 running back for me in fantasy foosball. The next guy that I want to talk about is someone that we are all familiar with, someone that may have been rostered in a lot of leagues because he had that handcuff appeal all year, but he's going to be the starter for the Seattle Super Seahawks, Zach Charbonnet. Zach Charbonnet's matchup this week against Arizona. is not a great one, to be honest. They give up the 19th most fantasy points per game to opposing running backs, but they do give up over 100 yards per game, or 117 yards per game to total running backs, not an individual. But if Zach Charbonnet is going to get the volume, he will have a chance to push 100 total yards. So 100 yards from scrimmage. And the thing about Zach Charbonnet that I would say is it's exciting is his goal line work this year. He's got a lot of touches from the goal line, 4 goal line touches this year, which has led to him scoring 7 touchdowns on the season, or 6 touchdowns on the season. And he's been able to be a running back 2 in fantasy with Kenneth Walker on the field. I mean, he was running back 24 last week. He was on the field 45%. He was running back 28 back in week 8. He was only on the field 44% of the time. The one game this season, or the 2 games this season, where he had a snap share over 60%, he's dominated. He's been really good. Top 10 finish both times. 17.9 fantasy points in week 2, 25.7 fantasy points in week 3, running back 8, running back 9, respectively. I think I have to move him up my ranks. I think I might have to move him up my ranks, to be honest. I got Charbonnet at 16, but actually just looking at it, I'm going to go ahead and bump him up ahead of Guerendo. So if you have both of these guys and you decide between Guerendo or Charbonnet, I'm going to go Charbonnet. I think that there's more potential for fuckery to be afoot with Charbonnet because we know enough of the role and where it can be expounded upon. As where Guerendo, like, we don't know if they're just going to give him the rock. We don't know necessarily how he's going to look like as the number 1 guy. So I'm going to go with I'm making the change now. So I like Charbonnet quite a bit. So I'm definitely looking to play. And the last running back that I'm going to talk about here, Braylon Allen, another rookie. So yeah, move him up. Yeah, we did it. Yeah, baby, we did it. Hey, listen, sometimes you need a little nudge. Sometimes you talk it through. But hey, it's all right. But Braylon Allen is the guy that can make or break the week. And I saved him for last for a reason, because we know the talent's there. We've seen it in flashes this season, but it's kind of faded. It's dwindled. And even last week when Isaiah Davis was scoring touchdowns, and clearly Breece Hall was not 100%, we didn't see a lot of production. We only saw the 5 carries. He did have 2 catches, but it was only 27 total yards, 4.7 fantasy points last week. There is some downside. Now, am I fading him by any chance? No. I'm playing him over James Conner. I'm playing him over Chuba Hubbard. I'm playing Braylon Allen over Isaiah Pacheco because the matchup is nice. The matchup is good. The Dolphins give up 6.7 points over league average, which is the 5th most in the league. They're a pretty soft matchup for running backs. They've given up over 100 yards per game, double-digit touchdowns. They have been effective at stopping opposing running backs to beat them in the passing game. But sometimes that metric can be a tough thing to kind of gauge. Is that kind of happenstance? Is that a concerted effort? But for Braylon Allen, I just think the volume will be there for him enough to produce against a soft matchup. But I like him 3rd best of this list because, again, with the Isaiah Davis factor there, how do they use him? Do they give him, 60, 70% of the snaps, or is it more like a 50-50 split? Is it more like we're going to give it to Davis on the goal line like we did last week? I don't know. But I like playing Braylon Allen. I'm not fading Braylon Allen one bit. But in terms of Charbonnet, Guerendo, and Allen, that's how I got them ranked. Charbonnet, Guerendo, and Allen this week. But again, 3 receivers coming out of net, pretty much thin air, is a blessing. It's an absolute blessing. Let's get some questions, and we'll move on to the wide receivers. Let's start right here. Choose a flex. Oh, actually, this was the first one. Pacheco or Warren? I do have Pacheco ranked higher. Now that I know that he's going to get the carries, I'm going to be moving him up ahead of Jaylen Warren. I'll do it right now, my ranks, matter of factly. So right now I have Warren at 18, Pacheco at 20, but I'm going to go ahead and move Pacheco up to 18 and Warren down to 19. So I'm going to go with Pacheco, but I do like Warren if you're in a pinch. I do like Warren in a pinch. Braylon Allen, Tracy, or Jacoby Myers, PPR flex, you got to go Myers. The matchup's great. He's been a target monster. Got to go Myers there. What's going on, Wesley? We got D. Smith, BTJ, Keenan, Garrett Wilson, Jalen Waddle got to sit one. I'm sitting Jalen Waddle. He went right back to the wide receiver 35 range last week after one big week. I'm sitting him in this cluster here. Start one, Waddle, Guerendo, Thielen, or more. I'm going to start Guerendo. I'm going to start big Guerendo right there. I like the matchup for him, like I mentioned, so I'm going to go with that here. Need one in PPR. Harrison, Garrett Wilson, Njoku, or Jennings. This is close. I'm going to convert to my rankings. I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson. Yeah, I'm going to go Garrett Wilson. I'm going to go Garrett Wilson in the PPR format. But if you have any type of any tight end premium, make sure you let me know. Let me see if is there any more questions in the chat before we move on. Ray McLeod, Austin, or Sincere McCormick. Austin. I'm gonna go Ray McLeod. I'm gonna go Ray McLeod here. The matchup's good. The matchup's really good against the Minnesota Vikings. Potential shootout. He's gotten the targets the last couple weeks. I'm going to go Raven McLeod here. We get a little crazy here. Let's go Raven McLeod. Need one. Good morning to you. Helping my flex. Standard. Ooh, interesting. Devontae, Jennings, or Cup. Thanks for the help. Go Cup. Got to go Cooper Cup. Did I already pick between Char, Braylon? I did, so I'm going to go with Charbonnet over Braylon in this game here, in that little battle. Oh, good morning to you, Chris. What's going on? First world problems. Oh, I do love first world problems. Start two wide receivers, one flex. Tyreek, Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr., Brian Thomas Jr., Judy, or Bucky Irving. You also have Zach Charbonnet. Humble brag, Mr. Christopher. So my two wide receivers, I am going to play Tyreek Hill and Judy. And your one flex, I'm going to go Bucky Irving. Fizz is in the chat. What is going on, Fizz? Like and subscribe. That's what. Yes, absolutely. Matter of fact, Fizz, that's a great point. Make sure you take a second to like. Make sure you like this video. Subscribe to the South Harmon YouTube channel, and then go ahead and leave some comments. Let's get this thing poppin'. Let's get it poppin'. There we go. That's what I was looking for. And the thing I was looking for, the rankings. Let's get into the wide receiver rankings. And let's talk a little Devontae Smith. I wanted to bring Smith up because he had missed the last two games. So I would imagine, myself included in some spots, I was very nervous to play the Slim Reaper this week. The matchup's surprisingly not fantastic. It's surprising. Coffee burp. Sorry, guys. The matchup it's top 10 matchup. It's the seventh most easy. They give the seventh most fantasy points to wide receivers. So I like Smith. He's going to get a lot of Mike Jackson. Of course, J.C. Horn's going to be off him. Going to be covering a lot of A.J. Brown, which is good for Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith, though, however, did pop in the Cuck rankings this week. So every week, the corner's under constant chaos. It's a model that I've built, a model that's going to be audited by the great Koopa Troopa, so be on the lookout for that, for Grinding the Edge. It's a podcast, comes out on the network every Saturday, so be on the lookout for that. To see how effective it's been. I've used it last year. I've used it this year. And where I found success is in players like this, like Devontae Smith, where you're not sure if you should play him or not, if you could trust him or not. Top 10 Cuck score. I think he has the ability to abuse a guy like Mike Jackson. And without Dallas Goedert on the field, Devontae Smith is averaging anywhere from 5 to 8 catches for 70 to 100 yards. So we're talking about a 12-point floor. I like that. I like that given this matchup. No Dallas Goedert means you should get a boost. We see a boost in some of his underlying metrics without Dallas Goedert, like yards per route run. It gets almost a 0.3% boost, goes from 2.00 to 2.38 whenever Dallas Goedert is off the field. So I like the fact that Smith is going to be the clear number 2 option in the passing game. without Dallas Goedert. And of course, I do like the matchup itself for Devontae Smith. So I got this Devontae Smith ranked inside my top 15 this week. He is my wide receiver 13, ahead of Malik Neighbors, ahead of DJ Moore, ahead of Ladd McConkey. So I love Devontae Smith. So if you were wondering, should I play him? Come back from injury? Yeah. Fire the man up, put him in the lineup. He's ready to rock and roll and beat up on some Panthers. The next wide receiver that I was going to talk about today is Jerry Jeudy. How can I not bring up Jerry Jeudy? Jerry Jeudy has now been on a heater, on an absolute heater recently, and culminating in a massive game on Monday Night Football last week, where he scored 40 fantasy points, went for almost 300 receiving yards, a touchdown. Could have had another deep touchdown if Jameis could have hit him on that one there. So for me, Jeudy this week, he's high in my ranks, wide receiver 17, even in a tougher matchup. So the matchup is the only reason why he probably isn't pushing even top 12, the way he's getting this volume with, Jameis Winston just peppering him. And, of course, like I mentioned, Pittsburgh Steelers are tough. Joey Porter especially is tough, and Porter can now be moved around. I talked about this on the walkthrough podcast. Cody Carpentier and I do that drop every Friday, where we go over every matchup. Check it out at the South Harmon Podcast Network. That I needed Cedric Tillman to play, because Tillman being on the field meant Joey Porter would probably gravitate towards the bigger player, the bigger receiver. Now with Tillman out, they can move it around. They can kind of manipulate coverages a little bit easier to stop a Jerry Jeudy. But we're seeing Jeudy on pace to go over 1,000 now after these big weeks with Jameis. He's just been unbelievably good since Jameis Winston's taken the field. And he was having a kind of a decent year. Sneaky pop-up weeks, but since Jameis has taken hold, I mean, 2 top 5 finishes. He's been a wide receiver 3 every single week. He's been a wide receiver 2, 3 of the 5 weeks. I mean, Jerry Jeudy's been awesome. And so Jerry Jeudy, if you have him on your roster, he's probably been a bench guy for you. Feel free to get him in the flex, get him in. He's a player that can make a difference now with Jameis Winston at the helm. All right, let's get through the tight ends, and then we'll get through some questions, because the tight ends, they're going to be quick. The tight ends are really, again, we're just giving flowers. There's really not much I want to talk about for tight end. This is how I want to spend my time talking tight end, is just celebrate how awesome a couple tight ends have been for us. And Brock Bowers. 884 receiving yards, leading the league in receptions, not the rookies. Brock Bowers is leading the league in receptions with 84. He's already seen over 113 targets. He only has 4 receiving touchdowns, and he's tight end 1. You would think with this volume, he'd be pushing 8 touchdowns, maybe doubling his total that he has now. Nope, we're not. And his expected fantasy points actually are 2 points higher than what he's scoring because of the lack of touchdowns. 4.6 touchdown rate. It's not the best, but with his ability to get volume and dominate and make explosive plays and make plays happen with the ball in his hands, he will be my tight end 1 probably each week going forward. They got some soft matchups coming up. This week they take on the Buccaneers, who have been good against the tight end. But maybe I think that's more of a coincidence, because their secondary has been so bad at stopping wide receivers that the wide receivers just keep getting peppered with targets and with catches and yards, and just who cares about tight end. But on the Raiders, Brock Bowers is heavily targeted, and he's just an absolute smash mode. Tight end 1 in Dynasty, tight end 1 in Fantasy, tight end 1 in your hearts, maybe, even if you're a Raiders fan, or if you're not. He does look like he's 42 years old, though. He does look like he's 42. In like this weird way, like Kelsey's the old guy in the position. He looks younger. And Brock Bowers looks like a British debutante, like a 48-year-old British debutante, like a duke of Birmingham. Is that a thing? Is that a place? I think I'm going to nail that, honestly. And the next tight end that I want to talk about and just celebrate his existence pretty much, Trey McBride. Trey McBride has been so dependable, and it doesn't matter that he has 0 touchdowns. Trey McBride over the last 2 seasons has been a fantasy weekly starter at tight end, Set it, forget it. Ain't no way. I'm playing him. And he has 3 touchdowns over the last 2 years. He only has 4 touchdowns in his career. That's mind-boggling. A player that gets this volume only has 4 career touchdowns, 3 over the last 2, 0 so far this year with 92 targets, 73 receptions, no receiving touchdowns. But how can you deny this volume? So this is going back to week 8. So these are the last 5 games. This is a pretty good sample size of the season. 11 targets, 4 targets, 5 targets, 15 targets. And last week, 12 targets. He caught all 12 of them. He's getting good, accurate targets from Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray has been one of the more accurate passers since he's come out, believe it or not. And he's just feeding Trey McBride in a way that it's just going to be a volume destroyer. And if he can just start finding the end zone, maybe get a little bit of touchdown progression over these last few weeks, if you have him on your team, there are going to be some nuclear weeks. I mean, first in yards per team pass attempt at tight end, second in yards per out run. He gets jiggy with it, highest juke rate amongst tight ends, third in EPA. He'd be one with a bullet if he just caught a couple of freaking touchdowns. In his matchup this week, top 8 matchup, more specifically against the Seattle Super Seahawks. So, Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, we salute you in fantasy. We salute you. Thank you for being a dependable player at a position that just simply has not been dependable week to week. All right, let's get back to some questions. Let's see where we left off. Mr. Magic, yo, what up? JSN or Jacoby or DK? Give me JSN. We are in full-fledged JSN season. I mean, I've been mad putting him in my top 10 each week. Even last week, the volume wasn't there. 4 receptions, converted it for 70 yards, gives you 11 fantasy points. You know, if you're capable of giving us a 40 burger like he did, you can't expect that week to week, but what we don't want out of those players are complete crater weeks. The superstars go for 40, but never truly let you down, and we're starting to see that out of Jason. That's why I got him at wide receiver 9, whether it be huge volume. There'll be a game where he probably gets 2 catches. They'll both go for touchdowns. The best players find a way to score fantasy points, whether it be volume, whether it be yards, whether it be touchdowns, whether it be all of the above. JSN's here. I don't think he's going anywhere. The matchup against the Cardinals is not a tough one. It's really kind of middle of the road here, but they give up a lot of receiving yards per game. A lot. They don't give a lot of touchdowns, but that can change in a blink of an eye. So give me Mr. JSN. Need to start a running back this week since Mixon, JT, and Brees not playing. So it's Gus Edwards, Chuba, or Amir Abdullah. Go with Chuba. Oh, Chubb. That's not Chuba. That's Chubb. So I still would go with Chubb. I got Chubb ranked the highest. I feel most confident in his role opposed to Abdullah's or Gus Edwards's. So go with Chubb. I mean, Chubb is just at this point, even with this depleted skill set, he's still what we hope Gus Edwards will be. And to be honest, I think they're like the same age. They're both right around 28. So I'm going to go with Chubb. I was flipping between Wilson and Judy. Thank you. You're the man, Chris. Thank you for tuning in. T-Rock has it. Oh, okay. I told Coop that I thought I was going to bomb miserably, but that just might be my own. It's my baby. Maybe I'm just a little nervous. So if it's been effective, trust the man, T-Rock. Cuck Score has been effective. And if you want to get the Cuck Score, got to join the community, got to join the Patreon, patreon.com/South Harmon. Start 2 full-point PPR, Devontae Smith, Keenan Allen, and Aaron Jones, and Charbonnet. Definitely going with Devontae Smith, and then give me Charbonnet. Good morning, Eric. I'm glad you're here today. Should I drop Javonte Williams from my bench to add Cedric Tillman or more and prep for the playoffs? Both are available on waivers. I'd say no. Right now. I don't hate the option of dropping Javonte. It seems like it is a full-blown 3-headed monster playing the hot hand, blah, 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 shit that we hate. That's what's going on in Denver. So I have no problem dropping Javonte. But in terms of picking up Tillman or more, those guys aren't really exciting for me. I'm not loving those two options. But if you got a better option, let me know. Leave it in the chat. Would you start Devontae Smith over Braylon Allen? A half-point PPR feels close. It's definitely close, John. But yes, I would. Yes, I would. I would because the thing about Devontae Smith is what we've seen where we've seen him be successful is 4 catches, 112 yards, basically doing what Christian Watson did on Thursday night, and I think that's absolutely on the table. So the half-point PPR doesn't sway it enough, and I don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but I'm going to go with Devontae here. Go give me a little Slim Reaper. Sell Kittle for in a 16 late first rebuilding. Yeah, hell yeah. Kittle's been great this year, but if you're rebuilding, screw it. Screw it, guys. Yeah, I would absolutely sell Kittle for a late first. I don't care if it's a 16th overall pick. The liquidity matters. Using it to trade elsewhere matters. And we don't know what, tight ends are pretty volatile year to year. Kittle's been good over a career. We know that. But you look at the WoRP charts, he's kind of falling a little bit. He does matter, but that's this year. He hasn't done that every year. Devontae Adams or Judy? Give me Jerry Judy. JSN or Izzy? Izzy? Who's Izzy? Am I bugging out? Who's Izzy? Who's Izzy? Who's Izzy? Leave in the chat. Am I just completely having a brain cramp? But it's probably going to be JSN. Because JSN's my wide receiver 9. Love him this week. Do you think Ladd will play today? If not, it can't be. Let's go back to this. Yeah, it can't be Izzy, but it can't. My guess I'm trying to say, like, does Isaac Garendo go by Izzy? I don't think it's something like that. Does Bucky is the nickname. I'm trying to think. It's got to be like that. Like, leave in the chat. Let me know. Thomas, leave it in the chat. Let us know who Izzy is. All right. Do I think Ladd will play? If not, bench him. We have Braylon Allen, Jennings, and Nick Westbrook-Akine. I thought for sure a couple weeks ago Nico Collins was going to play. Was pretty much ranting and raving about him playing here on this very show a few weeks ago, and I was dead ass wrong. So what I'm going to do is tell you to play Braylon Allen because I do like Braylon Allen enough to be okay. But if you hear that he's definitively playing before 1 o'clock kickoff, then I would roll with Ladd, for sure. 12 teams waiver wire is a wasteland. Where did I move there? Oh, yeah. We talk about the pickups for Javonte. Yeah, so I'll just keep Javonte then. Full point PPR, Sincere McCormick, Amir Abdullah, Kendry Miller, or Parker Washington. Dustino, my friend. This is what fantasy football is all about. Having to play something like this. I'm not trusting Kendry. Very excited to see him. I'm probably going to go Parker. Washington here, just with the PPR point of view of from it. I'm probably going to go. Yeah. I'm definitely going to go with Parker Washington there. Last one, then we'll talk a little WoRP, folks. Stafford or Geno Smith. This week, I will go with a steaming pile of Geno Smith. We got Geno Smith 3 spots higher against Arizona this week. All right, let's talk a little WoRP here. So if you're new to the show, first and foremost, welcome. Glad you're here. Glad you're hanging out here on the Sunday morning. But every week I like to talk about WoRP. Now, what's WoRP? WoRP is a metric developed by the great and powerful Coop over here at South Harmon. It's wins over replacement player. It's basically like your WAR stat in baseball, where how valuable is this player relative to the replacement level? And you can use this to transcend the positions, which I like to do. I like to also use it in terms of tiering down in Dynasty. And if you want to get a firsthand look at it, go over to southharmonff.com. And become a member of the WoRP Worshipper. It's about $7 a month, and it's the best tool in fantasy, bar none. And now is the time in Dynasty you want to have it because you can really take advantage of pockets of value. We have a rolling 3-year number that you can look at, or just this season. It's truly fantastic. And every week I look at the numbers and I give 3 takes from stuff that I'm seeing in the WoRP. And the first take. The first thing that I want to bring up here is Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is making the pocket passer look good again. Joe Burrow is making the pocket passer look good again. You look at the top 40 of WoRP. You see 4 quarterbacks. Joe Burrow is one of them. Now, the thing is, the reason why this stands out to me The other three, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, and Josh Allen, are what we call Konami code quarterbacks. Konami code guys. And Joe Burrow is the only pocket passer in that top 40. And he's really making a name for himself. He's the number 2 quarterback overall in WoRP right now. Number 2. He's been super, 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 super duper valuable. His WoRP this year, truly, it shows what you have to do if to be a pocket passer, to be a true difference maker. You got to throw a lot of touchdowns, right? And that's fine. It happens. Every year it happens. Last year we saw it out of Dak. This year we're seeing it out of Joe Burrow. 30 touchdowns at this point. And for those who are waiting at quarterback, because of course Konami's pushed up Anthony Richardson, pushed up Jane Daniels, pushed up because they could run, rightfully so. I mean, I'm not bad-mouthing any of those guys, or Kyler Murray. You know, those guys were pushed up in more of the savvier leagues, the more sharper leagues. Burrow kind of fell in there. He fell a little bit. And if you were able to scoop up Joe Burrow, thumbs up, double thumbs up. You did great. Joe Burrow's been awesome. The next thing I noticed when looking at the WoRP charts is that, and I know we've talked about it a lot this episode, and I'm going to make it tougher for you to start someone else over him, but I know he's injured, but Ladd McConkey has been absolutely awesome this year. He's the 10th highest wide receiver in WoRP, so he's the 10th most valuable relative to replacement player in the league. He's a top 30 overall player this year in fantasy in terms of WoRP. 58 catches, over 800 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns. He's a top 30 wide receiver on a points per game basis. He's a top 20 wide receiver overall. He's been pretty dependable. And when you look at the underlying metrics, they check out, man. They check out. Top 10 in yards per out run, or yards, or formation adjusted yards per out run, team yards per pass attempt, all of those inside the top 8, inside the top 10. He's been good. Expected points value proves that he's been awesome. He's given the 5th highest amongst wide receivers, and he's kind of coming into his own. It started a bit slow. Only getting over 10 fantasy points once over the first 3 weeks, only twice over the first 6 weeks. But since week 8, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 33, wide receiver 48, wide receiver 16, wide receiver 20, wide receiver 9. And then last week, we saw that 12-target game, 9 receptions. As these games get more and more important, you know, this is the time where the quarterbacks are going to find their guy, pepper their guy, and win with their guy. And Ladd McConkey is Justin Herbert's guy, and he's just been awesome. He's been absolutely awesome, and the WoRP shows it. The last WoRP takeaway today, this week in WoRP, if you look at the WoRP, it hasn't been good for old guys. WoRP has not been, it does not reflect well upon some of these aging wide receivers. And we can start at the top. Tyreek Hill. He's had his moments, had 20 fantasy points last week. You know, so he's hopefully coming into his own. Hopefully going to start putting up some big fantasy points. But why he's 62nd overall player, according to WoRP, outside of the top 50. Womp, 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 or WoRP, WoRP, WoRP. We got to get that sounder made. Devontae Adams, 73rd overall. Amari Cooper, 118 overall. Oh, my rookie's my that's rookie card, y'all. I love you, Amari. Come on. Today's the day, though. Today's the day. And then DeAndre Hopkins, 126. Tyler Lockett, another older guy, 107. And I think what we could take away from this is that time comes for everyone. That 30-year-old threshold, 31, it comes for us all. It's not kind. It's not always, it doesn't always wait. And it seems like this year you were able to get ahead of it if you use WoRP. Because, you know, in our dynasty markets, 3 of the guys that you see here, Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyreek Hill, and after this week's big week for Amari Cooper, he'll be on that list too. They do hold some value. They do hold a little bit more of the value relative to your market. But if you use WoRP, you realize that their actual value has tanked. It's not kind. So get out while you can. If you don't need the points today, tomorrow, 3 weeks, sell these guys now. There's still some glimmer of value according to markets. When you look at some market indicators like Keep Trade Cut, you'll see that they have some value for contending teams. But if you look at their WoRP, it's the end of the road as we know it. It's the end of the road as we know it. And if you trade them, you'll feel fine. Anyway, that was terrible. All right, a couple more questions, and then I'm going to go with the Kiwoom call of the week. If you noticed last week, I didn't do it because of the whole technical difficulty thing. I was a bit off my game. Saved everybody, but we're bringing it back. We're bringing the curse back because it's been absolutely terrible. But we're going to bring it back because I'm going to get it right. I'm going to get it right because I trust the process, and I'm going to get it right. Oh, shout out from Framingham. What? Hey, Framingham, let's go, Mass. Hey, did you go to Framingham State? I hope you went for Framingham State. All right, got some questions here. Mooney, BTJ, or Nick Westbrook Akine. He can't keep doing this to us. He can't keep doing this to us. So he won't. Let's go with Darnell Mooney. Nah, let's go with BTJ. Let's go with BTJ. He looked good enough with Mac last week. Rico Dowdle or James Conner. I'm going Rico. Love what I've seen out of Rico recently, so I'm going to go Rico. God. Okay, who for my wide receiver 2, wide receiver, running back 2 flex? Okay, here we go. So we're looking at, let's start at running back 2. I'm going to go Charbonnet. Definitely going to go Charbonnet. If you got him, that's awesome. Wide receiver 2, give me Jacoby Myers. And for your flex, give me a hot steaming pile of that Juwan Jennings. So we're going to go with Jennings, Myers, and Charbonnet. And we're going to get you that dub. We're going to get you dubs here in Framingham. Shout out Framingham. Yeah. Matty is 10 for 10 for 1. T-Rock, you are too kind. You are too kind. Sounded better than REM to me. Thank you. I used to work at FSU, but went to Framingham High. Let's go. Again, Framingham, got to show love the sport. Oh, Super Chat. What's up, Devin? Hey, shout out to you again. Super Chats will get you pushed to the top of it. If I've missed it, if I've gone over on accident, I'm sorry. Use Super Chat. Will get you right back to the top. Dynasty PPR trade. Isaac Rendo for Rico for the playoffs. Get Rico. I know it sounds great to get Rico. The playoffs looks so good for the Cowboys. I've been out there buying Rico Dowdle everywhere that I can for my contending teams. Starting next week, he gets the Carolina Panthers, who's been terrible against the run. Then the Buccaneers, another super easy matchup. Of course, the Eagles in Week 17 is tough, but sometimes you got to use something that's going to get you to that championship playoff, that championship game. Rico Dowdle, who's now the first 100-yard rusher for the Cowboys, and I don't know how long last week on Thanksgiving. And he's got some time off. He's been the workhorse all year. The volume's been there. Everything has leaned Rico Dowdle, and now the matchups do too. So let's go Rico Dowdle here. I love that. Trade Isaac G for Rico Dowdle. That's where winning is made out of. I love it. And we are going to end with that. Unless we have one more Super Chat. Any more Super Chats here? Keep going once. Going twice. So it's okay. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, hanging out with your boy, Matty Kiwoom, here on Sundays for the game plan. I really appreciate it. You guys are awesome. So if you want to be a part of the South Harmon community, join the Patreon. Best thing you can do, you can get on the Discord, get access to tools, all that stuff, access to us, chit chat, all that good stuff at patreon.com/South Harmon. South Harmon FF is where you can get all of our stuff. Our articles, our rankings, WoRP. Do you even WoRP? Our merch, all that is at South Harmon FF. And then, of course, here on YouTube, South Harmon FF. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, and make sure you leave a comment. If I didn't get to your question, drop it in the comments. I'll make sure I get it from now till 1 o'clock. And get back here in about just over an hour at noon, 12 Eastern Standard Time. We got start our shit. We're going to get those lineups ready to rock and roll for Week 14. So, friends, keep game planning, and I will see you next week. Peace.